Shalom, shalom. Good evening, and welcome to Uzziel Lewi channel, to the Uzziel Lewi channel. The end of days TV, I like to call this. Tonight we have a very, very, very special guest. My brother, someone that I grew up with in this way of life. That, you know, we've been together since we were 13 years old in this way of life. So it is with honor and with pleasure that I have him here with us tonight. None other than my brother Chief Naphtali Ben Dan. And we're here tonight to discuss a couple of things, few things in fact. We're going to discuss economics. We're going to discuss Torah. We're going to discuss a gamut of things that that we have in mind. We want to touch on the event that we have coming up on June 19th at Restoration Plaza, and we're going to get back to that. But before we get to that, I have a very special treat. I have my brother YEHUDAH in the building with my son Amos Lewi, and they're going to open up with some drumming for the listening audience. So I hope that everybody enjoys it, and I hope that everybody has a good time. So here we go. Hold on. Y'all ready? I'm going to set it up real quick for y'all, for the audience to see. Hallelujah. I'd like to thank my son Amos and my brother YEHUDAH Ben Dan for that rousing introduction. Everybody give them a hand. Like what they did, they giving themselves a hand. We like to thank the Most High for all things and everything. Hallelujah. We're here because I wanted to bring forth my brother Chief Naphtali Ben Dan to bring forth a message in order to and speak to our people, you know, concerning some of the issues that's going on in our communities, you know, economic wise, social. We're gonna touch on a number of things. We're gonna touch on a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of everything, because my brother is well rounded. And like I said, you know, I've known him for over 27 years. So I thank the Most High God for his life and the life of his family and everyone that he loves. So my brother, go ahead, introduce yourself to the listening audience and let everybody know, give everybody a brief history of yourself, who you are, how you started. I mean, most people know you, but let the people know what's going on with you. Give them a brief history of yourself.
Um, Good evening, everybody. Shalom. Um, Praise to the Most High for thanking him for the life of everybody within the sound of my voice. Thanking him for my brother Chief Uzziel for setting up this forum. So, yeah, I'm Chief Naphtali Ben Dan. For those who don't know me, I've been a part of the nation of Israel since birth. And has always been a people within the knowledge of self and outside of the knowledge of who they are, a better state of being, God's law, um, to spread truth through active participation. And what I mean by that is that we come from um, the years, beginning with Rabbi Matthews on down to the other rabbis, the mores, the teachers, the princes, the chiefs. But to take a change so that we can be active in the participation of what's actually happening, because we need activity. We need to be hands on into in a struggle that right now we're losing this fight. Because there's not enough of us that are side of the Most High, that are on the side of doing right, or that are on the side of the activity that needs that we need, for us in order to get over this hurdle of oppression.
Thank you, my brother. You know, we as a people, I was looking at a video, and it's been 24 years since the LA riots. I'm sure you remember that. We probably was together doing something at that
Yeah, we
time.
were in high school. Yeah,
So the LA riots was in 1992, and one of the main issues with the LA riots was that if for the people that might not know, it was a man, Rodney King. He's now deceased, passed away. He he was there was some police brutality. They had the videotape with him being brutalized by the side of the highway, of the freeway. I forget what it was. And basically what happened is that the trial was moved from LA, and it was moved to another county. And
Valley.
the jurors found the police officers not guilty. And
Right.
LA started the LA riots I believe it was April of 1992. I believe the riots began April 29th, 1992, if I'm not mistaken. And it went up into smoke. So Chief Naphtali Ben Dan, I would like to ask you, do you see any change in the way that police deal with, in particular, black men today in this time? Do you see any change from back then to now, or are things still remaining the same in terms of the treatment of black people in general?
Yeah, there's a change, I believe. It's gotten worse. As you see, the beating with Rodney King was a beating. Now there's full on assault. That's obvious. People are being caught on camera more because there's more. But now you see the killing of children. Before that was something in '92. You really didn't see instances where teenagers and kids were being killed by the police, but now, down by the police in cold blood. So yeah, it's gotten worse because they've moved on from just the destruction of the black man. Now it's an attack on women, children, our babies. You see a lot of that stuff happening in these days and times, and it's it's tragic, but it's to be expected in a society that we are looking at right now that doesn't care for our welfare, doesn't care for our progress, doesn't care for our peace. So it just gives us more to look at for us to understand that we have to do more to protect ourselves. And when I say protect, I'm not necessarily telling you to go out and grab guns and do anything to police officers, anything of that nature. So I don't want to get that misconstrued. But what I say protect is now there has to be a level of awareness that they can be victims of this level of violence just as much as anybody else can, just as much as a person that the innocent are dying with the guilty, because society believes that we're guilty based on the color of our skin, not because of whether or not we do crime. So some things really don't make a difference. Our education is not making a difference. Our religion is not making a difference. And even in these days and times, how much money you make in your pocket now, it's not making a difference. Everybody could fall victim. Around in stores because they think that she's black, she's gonna steal something, and that's Oprah. Oprah's worth billions of dollars. It happens to her. It could happen to anybody. So that our kids are well versed in white supremacy. They have to be well versed in understanding the nature of the situation that they're dealing with because that's their best defense.
It's very interesting that you're seeing that that you said that, because you're saying that basically times have gotten worse than when we were teenagers, as far as the police brutality and the level of I guess back then it wasn't as overt as it is now, especially with the climate of Donald Trump and everything that's going on with the slogan "Make America, make America American
Great
again," or for
again.
Americans again.
Yeah,
What do you think about
great.
that whole climate with Donald Trump and what's going on right now in the political scene?
Donald Trump knows America. You know, if you study politics, there has always been an ingrained fear in a lot of white people regarding blacks, even other minorities. So politicians know how to trigger that emotion to make them rally up and to make them angry and to make them be divisive and make them and polarize for the vote. So he is a politician now itself by trying to rile up and excite a lot of this atmosphere. You study what he's not an intellectual. He doesn't say anything that's really valid. He doesn't make points that he can really. He's not even an eloquent speaker. More of a rebel rouser. But that's what America wants. You know, you want somebody to make you feel that's with your anger and your frustration, and to give you your rights to be able to polarize yourself. So he's creating an atmosphere that is always existed in this country. There's a lot of people with animosity against Obama, just for the sheer fact that Obama's black. Obama's not doing anything to uplift the black race or the black people in America, but yet and still, there's people that they're really upset. They believe he's the Antichrist and everything else of that nature. How to trigger those atmospheres, those feelings. They've been doing this for years. If you study politics, politics has always been divided on race, ethnicity, and class. So when people are choosing, they're going to choose a person that they feel is going to support their race, their ethnicity, and their class. So saying that knows or has people that know America. They know how to push the buttons of American people. They know how to arouse that spirit of anger, frustration, to the point where you have at his rallies. His rallies are violent, divisive, and polarizing. The atmosphere that he wants to have, and it's an embarrassment to the American public that throughout all of these years, us being supposedly the leaders of the free have states comes to our politics. With Donald Trump, eventually wants that's what they're looking for. He's rich, white, he's a male, and he's talking about what he's going to do in foreign countries and all of these situations. I'm not saying that any of the other politicians are better. The nature of politics, in my opinion, is not good. But you see how easy it is for the wrong voice to get up and say something and have that violent trance on the public, to get the public so enamored by the stuff that you're saying, because they believe that you're going to do something for them, and they believe that you're going to champion their cause and things of that nature. So the whole nature of what he's doing is very Nazi in nature, because even Hitler was known to state that he knows that there's no such thing as race. This is something that was said that Hitler had said. He knows that there's no such thing as race, but he is a politician, so therefore it suits him fine for his cause. So he's taking advantage of the fact that there are racist people, there are people that are angry, there are people that are upset, there are people that are in America that are fearful, and advantage of this all the time. They've been taking advantage of it, to the point that most of the politics that came in were swayed based on how much oppression the president is going to give to black people, or how much he's going to oppress black people or take away their rights and hand over black rights to other people or white people. So we have to be careful. We have to be mindful, but at the same time, we have to put ourselves in a position to protect ourselves, protect our racist legislation and policies, because there's a lot going on in this country that I don't know if you know about, but bad situation for quite some time, and it's even going to get worse.
I just want to shift the conversation just a little and concentrate on our people a little. What do you think about the violence in our communities, in particular, what's going on in the city of Chicago with the gang violence? And it used to, in the early '90s, it used to be LA, but it seems like they've calmed down a bit out there. I'm sure there's still a lot of gang banging, but it seems like you don't hear about it in LA as much as you used to back in the late '80s and early '90s. What do you think about the violence that's going on in Chicago, and what can we do as a community to kind of resolve that problem, kind of bring that problem into a halt, and try to bring our brothers and sisters into an understanding of to show them that this particular lifestyle is not really that conducive to to being a good man and a good woman.
I just want to give a little, not so much of a history lesson, but I have to go back to those triggers. I have to go back to the triggers that creates these atmospheres. Um, and even in Europe, when any group of people, class of people, caste of people are deprived of their basic able to be educated, to be able to feed themselves, to be able to make enough to survive for their families, you're going to have competition for respect, for dignity. It's automatic because that's how a social system works when it deprives people of the ability to have proper economics and to have proper education. Um, no, we've been hearing stories about how bad Chicago was since we were kids. It's not that Brooklyn was any better, but war zone for years. And it only gets worse because poverty is getting worse. Um, Crack epidemic now it's even worse because the crack epidemic heightened a lot of violence. But now, because the epidemic is not as severe, at the epidemic itself, because it's kind of now you have the same generations of uneducated people who are not able to themselves, so to speak, scrambling and competing for the little bit of drug money that they can get because it's not as available as it was in the past. There's a lot going on as far as how the education system in Chicago is actually working. And there were big protests about that not too long ago in Chicago. Happening with the gangs in Chicago as far as the younger generations picking up or the younger generations being even worse than what the predecessors were in that time. El Rukins, all of the gangs out there who are they committed to what they are because there hasn't been any change as far as pumping into the economy in Chicago what the people actually need. So it's going to get severe. It's going to get severe because as far as the black community is concerned, it's kind of left to die. They're trying to do a lot to just have these communities, and that the people are just going to stand there and it's going to kill each other off. I watched and there was Chirac, and the other movie was Barbershop 2. Both had the strong messages, but whether you know it or not, a lot of what's happening there is happening Little Rock, Arkansas, still in LA. They still have banging problems, country, even in countries outside, they have these problems. I heard Belize. I heard they're banging hard in Belize. This is that this gang warfare is going to continue to happen because they're not giving people a proper education and resources. And all of these things are an effect of the fact that we live in a system that doesn't give us what we need, destroy us. So I do believe that communities are change, but when things are becoming inheriting you, and it's generation after generation. You know, there's people that are in gangs that they're 4 generations deep in this gang already, is in this gang, and you know, once violence set off and somebody gets killed, it's going to be hard to tell somebody don't retaliate from the other side. So therefore, you keep perpetuating and perpetuating and perpetuating, and then whether you know it or not, you know, we live in a system in America where it feeds off our destruction. You know, prison is a $7 billion industry. The judicial system is a $1 billion industry. All of these systems are $1 billion industries, taking advantage of the fact that we are living in a violent society, and that we as a people don't have the level of cooperation to come together to understand what it needs to be peace and have solidarity for ourselves and for our future. You know, so I was told by a psychologist that it takes a couple of centuries for people to get out of a truly mental oppressed state. And you know, I think the beginnings are there. I think there's enough people that know, but then we have a lot of compromisers. We have a lot of people who they really don't care about whether or not, you know, the future of our people becomes better. They're taking advantage of the bad situations. Politicians, white and black, take advantage of the bad situations of our people, and we're not in a situation where we're able to really convey the necessity for us to survive. You know, it's a lot of things that are going on in these places, and violence is just one thing. There's other things that are happening that are very destructive in a lot of these places. You know, in Chicago as well. But violence is just one, and it's one of the main ones. But you know, they've even places like Chicago, basically to the wolves. They to die without providing them resources or anything to give them that level of change.
So what do you think is so you're basically what you're saying, that the solution is just to provide jobs, to give people opportunities.
The first thing is jobs. I work as an employment specialist, employment, and I'm an employment coordinator actually. So I'm in charge of providing jobs. And one of the reasons why I clearly understand or have a knowledge on what jobs actually do is because it's a resource. And throughout America, America decided after slavery we were better off being slaves. So what they did was they reworked the Constitution that we can always be put back in a state of slavery at any given time. So they, you know, they changed it to, you know, making legal, and a lot of those policies that were written, the black codes, the black laws, Jim Crow, it really hasn't changed. It just evolved. As people began to flee the South and go to areas like New York, Harlem, Chicago, Philadelphia, um, plans for you when you go to these places. You know, they have plans to make sure that the masses are not going to be in a situation where you are self-sufficient, because self-sufficiency allows us to be independent and gets us out of the control of government, society, control of white corporations. We have our own. We don't have to go to other people. Therefore, we don't have to be manipulated by the society. The society is always create a certain level of control based on economics. Economics to be able to manipulate our homes, our education. It allows them to be able to handle what we watch on TV. Keeps us of people who are care more about putting makeup on our face and big screen TVs in our houses and fly cars instead of building wealth, getting land, getting businesses to be able to live. We don't live because we're a consumer culture. We need to become a productive culture, a manufacturing culture where we are able to take care of ourselves. And you know, society in this country operate outside of their ethnic group. They don't do business outside of their ethnic group. If they want to buy a slice of bread, they want to buy that slice of bread, because at the end of the day, that money is being kept within their community. People have or lack the concept of that level of cooperative economics. and we needed to survive. It's not all our fault, because we've been trained to think like that. We've been trained to have a culture of dependency. Um, During the civil rights era, a lot of us under Jim Crow, because we had to. Bus lines, we had our own factories where we made brooms. Black Wall Street, even before the civil rights, to a lot of the independence that we were able to have. Once decided that cab company's not good enough, they want to ride in a white cab. Company's not good enough, they want to ride in the white bus. They want to do things the way white people do. I want to be in a white person's hotel. And so the level of independence that we have, our ability to have our own. Our schools actually got worse because instead of having a curriculum in a school where the teacher looks like you, the teacher has an understanding of your upbringing, the teacher knows your mother or has that familiarity because they're part of the same community. We compromise to be part of a system that their curriculum is based on indoctrination to hold us back. Documentary out. I forgot the name of it. It's called Genocide something, but it's discussed prison, the education to prison pipeline. And that our children are actually being groomed as they're in the public school system, especially the males. Elemental genocide is the name of it. They're being go to jail, and they're on how much prisons to build based on the scores, the citywide tests, and all of those type of tests that they take of our children. So they'll know that if not doing well in school, eventually he will resort to a life of crime because he can't cope or survive inside the society. It's a sad thing that there's so much programming and manipulation that's being happening to people, but they do, or the society that we live in fears an independent rise of a black people. Personal belief, black people could have been good contributors to American society. We have been good contributors to American society, but this is not the point of a lot of the country. They want us under level of control. They want that free labor. They want us to be in a system where we're kept dumb, deaf, and blind and ignorant, and without an ability to be able to make progress for ourselves.
So in in terms of, well, I'll just ask this question: do you think, just mute your mic real quick so I don't get the feedback over here? Um, do
Gotcha.
you think that that entertainers and athletes and people of that ilk, that they are to be held responsible for, because they are the ones who kind of hold a lot of the money supposedly in the black community. Many of them, they get money and they move out of the black communities and in turn spending their money within other communities. But do you think that they should be held responsible for building businesses within the black, urban setting, um, building affordable homes, doing all the things to help build our communities and make it, that community to where we won't be um, destitute to a life of crime? Do you think that these people should be held responsible for that?
Um, I would say yeah. And I say yeah with a grain of salt, I'm gonna explain the grain of salt later. But I'm gonna say yeah to the fact, if you have it to do it, there's a problem that you can help and change, then you should. Um, So part of the problem is they are entertainers. They are not people who have that level of vision. I'm not saying that everybody doesn't, but I'm saying that part of it is that, you know, part of that nature, the fact that they have that a certain nature, they are allowed to be rich. They're allowed to have that level of money and influence, because their job is to entertain and is not to be involved in nationalism or grassroots struggle. They don't get involved in those things, because it would destroy their ability to entertain their livelihood. You know, because most of the entertainers, the entities that control the entertainers are much higher. You know, so the NBA is an organization, and the owners of it, it's a control. You know, the record companies. You know, people that have millions of dollars, but it's always a control. You know, recently died, and a lot of his that are going up now discuss and and you know is hatred of the music industry, because regardless of what you think about him, you know, artists are the backbone of the industry, and that, you know, you shouldn't be signing away your talent. But you know, and he actually at one time, I remember he walked around with a mark on his forehead that said slave, and he wouldn't be let out of his contract. They saying that they owned his name, and that was his birth name. So entertainers are responsible. To what extent? I think often too much in our community we look to and comedians to be athletes, to be our vanguard. They are who they are. They're singers, they're athletes. That's the skill that they perfected. We have a lot of Black intellectuals in our community, psychologists, teachers. Um, those are the people that you have to look to in order to make these level of changes. Marcus Garvey was Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey wasn't an athlete or singer or whatever the case may be. He was a man that was dedicated to the cause of the upliftment of Black people. Malcolm X, this is what they did. You know, it wasn't that they had a pastime outside of the struggle. So full-time job is, and we're not funding those people. We're not looking to, in the white community, they have business investors, they have people that are doing what they have to do, look to for that level of leadership. Is an entertainer in that community being looked to, maybe for fanfare or to just rally people to that popular image. They may use that. They are not decision makers. Taber Smiley gets a group of educators and intellectuals together for Black think tanks, you know, and we have to be cognizant of those people, whether we agree with them or not. Some of the minds that we have in our community at this point, start looking at those things and start creating minds that are willing to build a strong Black economy, strong wealth system, defense system. You know, defending our people against things, being able to have people in strong places to pass legislation to make sure that doesn't happen again. We need people to think on that level. Basically, you know, because when other people control the education of your children, you can't really get mad when your children are killing each other out in the street and they're acting out of whack, because they've been raised by their adversaries. You know, so whatever the adversaries wants the inside their head, they're gonna get that inside their head. Outside of that, adversary wants them to think. You go to a public school, and you know, and I can remember myself. I learned nothing about slavery, nothing about the achievements of Black people in the country outside of those things that were writing on, and maybe George Washington Carver. You know, that's the most that they'll give you, in Booker T. Washington. But you don't learn the advancements of Black people in West Africa during the time before the transatlantic slave trade. You don't learn the ancient cultures of Black people inside places like Rome, and you definitely don't learn that the children of Israel people, they passed that along, you know, because that's religious study, whatever. But they're passed off as white. Ancient Egyptians are passed off as white. Babylonians are passed off as white. Started, you know, it's civil. You know, we know what is for who we are and what is us. You know, it's not that our young people don't have a high self-esteem of one another. You know, it's to kill, or to manipulate, or to challenge, or to rebel against anything that looks like you or is of you, because you don't have high worth, so you don't hold anybody that's like you in high worth. We have to start to change that and start to elevate that. You know, when kids learn about who they are, and when they learn about what was done to them, and have a better sense of who they are. You know that they're not a bad luck accident, like Malcolm said. That individuals are plans, traps, things that were actually in goals that America had. Progress. We have geniuses that are yet to awaken. This is people who don't even understand their level of their full potential as individuals, the children of God. And when you are the child of God, you know, us who are of West African and Black American and Black South American and West Indian descent, you know, being the children of Israel, we have an everlasting covenant. Covenant means that there will always be somebody time when everybody else is faded away. There will always be somebody of Israelite heritage on this planet, and that's a great blessing to have. DNA speaks into eternity. Everybody can say that their DNA does that. That we're going to be. So we have to take pride in who we are, but we have to begin to really think about educating ourselves and look at that as a priority, not just a far gone vision that, oh, we'll get down to that down the line. No, we need to start doing that now. The last Israelite school we had is when we were years old. Those things were not supposed to go, because now you have people leave the nation. You know, they get out of it because there's no pride in it. There's no pride in them being inside of it, because they spend their time trying to survive in a system that is against them and that doesn't allow them to be themselves. When you send your kids out to the world, they're going to assimilate to the world, because human beings will assimilate to any environment that they're in. So you can't tell them, don't eat this. You got to be like that because you're Israelite. When they're spending more time being influenced by the outside world than they are your family, their spiritual peers, they're not getting enough. Those communities that you see now, the Hasidic community with the Satmar Lubavitch, they're isolated. They don't even teach in their schools. They don't even teach science because it's against God, they believe. You know what I mean? I said I went to the library for the first time when I was 17 years old. A rebel when I went to the library because they don't believe in dinosaurs. You know, they don't believe in that. That's them, but that's their culture. That's what they're doing, but they're living to protect their society. You know what I mean? So I can't fault them. They have problems. They got a lot of in their community. They have a lot of corruption happening, but at the same time, they clearly understand that they are people. They understand that they have to be able to keep their community going, keep their community self-sufficient, keep their community independent, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of groups inside this country that they operate within themselves. You have Chinese people, they're Chinese American, but they operate within themselves. Koreans, they operate within themselves. Nobody's outside of their community. You know, their kids still go to Catholic school and do whatever they have to do and take communion and whatever the case may be. So, you know, their culture, they're still able to be in American society and still live somewhat within their culture. We have to be able to do that. Now, of our people, we can, but let's admit it, a lot of our people are going to be stuck in what they've been indoctrinated to practice. So that is something that we can only pray God wakes them out of it, but we just have to do our job. And once we do our job, I believe that we can have an impact for those, even those outside, because everybody depends on righteous people. And in our circles, you know, don't do this way of life. Our friends that we see, they love that positive image, whether you recognize it or not. You know, there's a need for righteous people out here. They need to be able to have people that with their wife, won't steal from them, won't cut their throat, won't stab them in the back. You know what I mean? It's good to have people like that around you.
Hallelujah. You touched on a particular subject, and you spoke about child molestation, and now I want to turn it to our community. As me and you both grew up in the hip hop genre of music, and you know, I guess you could call us hip hop heads, and we enjoyed the music.
Yeah.
Um, allegations, got to say allegations. I don't know if you heard about it. And this is something that might be prevalent in our communities and we don't speak about. Not
Right.
only the molestation of girls, but also of young black males in our community. And
Right.
when I seen the Africa Bambaataa story and all the um all the alleged victims, gotta say alleged because we don't, no formal charges has been brought up against the man, but we know from what everybody is saying. I mean, it's basically the same stories. These all this, this trauma that these guys were young teenagers, now they're men. What do you think about, the whole Zulu nation, the whole hip hop world? What do you think about the statements that Karis One made, almost in defense of Africa Bambaataa? Then he tried to go back and clean it up, but it still was kind of like in that gray area. Do you want to touch on all of that, on the Africa Bambaataa, the Zulu nation? Should he step down? I don't know if he stepped down yet from the Zulu nation. What
Definitely.
kind of impact do you think that has on our community?
Um, First, it's regardless of what people may want to say, whether it's KRS-One, whether it's anybody else, it is giving a black eye. It is giving the black community a black eye. He was one of the fundamental pioneers of the hip hop movement, and he was a pioneer of the Zulu nation. And that was something that we associated with a lot of the other grassroots groups in New York and the Black Power. You know what I'm saying? So that allegations, I don't, and I may be wrong. I wasn't there to witness it, but I don't, or the cause that a grown man would come out in public that caused by somebody and that's willing to deal with that level of ridicule and shame, and to go before his family to tell people that, yeah, to lie on somebody. There's better lies that you can tell about a person than not to incriminate yourself because you're a victim, but to put yourself out there so that the world to see that you've been violated. So that's my belief. But just to touch on what KRS-One said, I've been tracking this since I've heard about it. I've heard KRS-One statements. I heard his statement that initially made, saying that he doesn't give a F. And I think he was really pointing to the fact that whether or not Bambaataa was gay or whatever the case may be, or certain things, whatever, because different things. And this is not in saying it. That was he is not looking at it from a perspective of whether somebody's guilty or innocent right now. He's like, right now it's just an allegation, and getting enamored of just about allegations, and he's not going to delve inside. He doesn't give a F about people talking about people. That's his whole thing. You know what I mean? Picture is much bigger. I think he should address the situation a little bit better than just to say that, you know, he doesn't give a damn. He did say that if Bambaataa is doing these things, then he has to deal with it. But he does say that it doesn't have an effect on hip hop. He doesn't think it has an effect on the legacy of hip hop. It does. It means something when stature is, and I mean, it's not going to erase hip hop, but when somebody of that stature does something like that, and those of us who are hip hop heads, you know, that hurts. I used to love watching Bambaataa, Planet Rock, those videos. You know what I mean? Those breakdancing records I heard. You know, those were jams. It wasn't. So for us, it means a lot because, you know, we come up in the culture. We come up in the culture. So it takes a lot of that. It takes a lot of the ideals that we've held this movement away. Now, in 100, you know, men are men, right? So men are prone to foul, nasty stuff, and the image that you have of a person is not what they actually are. So to that extent, you know, we can't be naive to know that there's a lot of people out in this world, regardless of what we think about, a lot of dirt. One day covered, but for the most part, you just assuming that, oh, because he did or pioneered hip hop, that he was an okay guy. You know, I didn't know his personal business. I didn't know, but the image that's being portrayed was that, you know, he was positive, grassroots, you know, about the community, power movement, stuff like that. Automatically assume that he would never do something like that. Is the worst people hide behind a polished and good image. You know, so there's a lot of, that's the reason why a lot of homosexual, not just homosexual, but predatory homosexuals, church and go to other organizations because they're trying to hide, you know. So just to get into to delve into the whole thing with Bambaataa and molestation in our community in general. So those of you, I've been talking about this. I think probably I was very much inspired by Irritated Genie and other people who the subject matter, because part of the problem in our society is that when men leave the home, and in the 60s, you know, welfare systems and other systems separated men from their homes. You know, the people that are left behind, the family, the men, the women, and the children, they become vulnerable. You got women that they spend their time at work. They're working. Nobody's observing what the children are doing, what they're getting into. These molestation, or from what I'm hearing, oftentimes it's a family member that's doing it. Person's family that is committing these crimes. So because they don't want the stigma or the shame that this person did this, they'll hide it, you know. And about trauma, 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 trauma. If a woman gets raped, the fact that she needs to have justice, not just closure on the fact that I'm going to put this behind me, because she may never actually put it behind her. She may go on treating other men abusive manner, or because she's not organization. But if she was able to see that justice was done, she was victimized, that paid for the crime, because as the book says, a man that like a man that commits a murder. So if there was justice that needs to be seen, then there can be some level of closure with her, because she knows that some level of it doesn't take away the pain, but she knows that some level of justice was done. Somebody's there to pay. These children, when you tell you the atrocity of molesting a child, they are mentally damaged for life. One, sexuality is part of our psych. It's important to know how to identify in the view of the whole world. It's important to know that you're going to be a boy, you're going to have, like girls, you're going to have a destiny where you're going to have a wife and have kids. Part of that process gets shut down, male or female, and you violate them sexually. With them, they have these adverse effects because their process was halted. The process that they're supposed to have growing up becomes confused. So they may be hyper promiscuous. They turn out to be homosexual or lesbian, because there's nobody providing direction for them after they experience this, and they are not experiencing closure. Imagine if the person that violated, a male or female that was young, was violated. Imagine if you saw the justice, the satisfaction in your mind to know that what he did as being wrong, instead of what he did was hidden, was kept secret. What he did was brushed under the rug. That is doing a lot of damage to us. A lot of this to their Israelite, non-Israelite, whoever you are. It's done in the dark, because it doesn't only affect you and the person that you're doing it to, but it affects the energy that's happening around you. So a lot of things that may happen in the community, things are going on, and we are hiding the dirt of what we are doing, is having a bad effect on us. And to believe that things that are wrong are okay as long as you don't get caught. All of it is wrong. If God said it's wrong, and there is no man, no policy, there is no group, there is no fading of time to ever make these things correct. So what I believe in the Israelite community in general, and the Black community as a whole, whatever community that's fallen victim to a lot of these problems, I believe that you need to have where you clearly understand, if by law somebody does this level of violation within the community, I'm not proposing violence and getting in. I'm proposing that person has to go out of the community. There's some things that people to be accountable for. There's some things that you actually have to say, nah, that's bad and that can't be forgiven, because the selfishness of that behavior, you can't take back that person's life. What you took away from them when you did stuff like that. Compare it to murder. You can't bring back that life. Forgive you for violating that person's life. Now, that they were molested, they need to get counseling, they need to do this, whatever the case may be. And maybe they do to some extent. But to what extent are we going to help people, hold people accountable in the wrong that's being done? That's very important to hold people accountable for that, because now you have communities and people, you have people in our community who left these crimes, maybe because it's family members that did it, maybe because I don't want to let the world know that my husband did this, whatever the case may be. Don't feel guilty or ashamed of a crime that you did not commit. These people are exposed, because that's what's going to help, number one, the healing of the person that was victimized. It'll help everybody clearly understand that behaviors like that will not be tolerated. So people, when it comes to mind, they're not going to think to do that because the repercussions are too great. If Ben Bada did it, it was something that he uses influence to do it. If anybody does stuff like that, they use their power to do that. To make sure that, in our community, for years, children are to be seen and not heard and things of that nature. We had that, but that culture is a culture that we adapted from the European slave master. Culture had a place. Women have a place. Men have a place. We all had our place. And in our place, we know how to respect everybody else's place. There were things that we were supposed to do and the things that were obligated for us to be as children. There were rites of passage that we had to have to come in. In Torah, a man becomes a man at 20 because he becomes accountable for certain behaviors at 20 years old. He becomes responsible for certain things at 20 years old. It's very important. I think I lost you, Uz.
I'm here. I just blacked my camera out for a second.
Okay. Yeah, so I lost my camera. Hold on. So with that being said, he has to be held accountable for his actions, Africa Bambaataa. He has to be held accountable. It's disappointing to everybody that looked up to him and believed in his image, an image of hip hop, founder of hip hop, pioneer of hip hop. But he has to be held accountable. And it is a black guy. It's a black guy for hip hop. It's a black guy for the Zulu Nation. It's a black guy for black people in general. Because we don't, nobody wants to grow up hearing that person as an icon.
Okay, just moving straight along from there. Thank you for those words and for the insight on it. June 19th, my brother.
June 19th.
Yes, what are you expecting? June 19th.
Sharif Bey, Chief Naphtali Ben Dan. Tonight, if I don't, I get to it tomorrow. June 19th. So let me just first talk about Valley of the Dry Bones. I commend you because you're working on a nice project. I'm going to need you to help me with my project, but that's an offline conversation. But Valley of the Dry Bones was something I wanted to work on, even when we were both going to Shema. Our people, we are a state in the community address. Any viable nation has to always have an audit and an assessment of where their goals have to be for the future. And the Valley of the Dry Bones is it a spiritual, clearly understand where we have to be morally and spiritually before our God, but it's an assessment of our community to understand that these are the things that are being done to us. This is the mind frame that we have to have going into the future. These are the goals that we need to have in order to change some of the circumstances that we're existing in now, because there's a whole heap of stuff that has been done, that's being done, and that's going to be done, that's being planned by the American government, by our adversaries that are trying to keep us current state of slavery, this current state of limbo that we're dealing with right now. So people have to be made aware, because the awareness is the empowerment, and from the empowerment of the awareness, you can have proper strategy and planning for
down the line. So I was writing an essay today, and I was just talking about a subject matter. And, you know, in warfare, knowledge of what the enemy's doing, their plans, their resources, their number, they call that intelligence. And that's knowledge of what's going on. That's knowledge of what the enemy has planned for you. So if knowledge is power, and if we want to empower ourselves, then we have to become or get our intelligence regarding what the adversary or our adversary has planned for us. I know it's gonna, you know, I'm not taking away from people's fun times, partying, you know what I'm saying? I'm any of that. But there has to be a level of awareness with all the stuff that's happening with us. There has to be a level of seriousness that takes place with us to the next level regarding us in this society. There's a lot of things that we can actually do as a community thinking on. Shout out to the Israelite Vision Council. I just joined the Vision Council headed up by Rabbi Yahu. Been talking with him for a while concerning certain ideas and necessities that we've let slip by in our community throughout. And a lot of people in the community are sharing the same vision of us being responsible and accountable for the things that are happening in our community this day, in this day and time. So we always have to be in the situation we progress. People can't take a day off, especially if they're in a state of oppression. You know, when the first priority of an oppressed people or an enslaved people is freedom. There's nothing else right now. Money is not as important. Fun times is not as important. Recreation is not as important. All of important as being free. And those of us who clearly understand that freedom comes with the blessing of God, the opening and the healing of the Most High God's ever-changing hand, as well as the ability and the work necessary for us to be able to expedite that freedom. There's nothing that God is going to do for us that we are not willing and able to get up and do for ourselves. We have to take the steps to show that we're willing to do it. There's oftentimes where the Most High said, "I'll fight your battles," right, and show up to the battle. So our job is to do the work that we need to do to organize ourselves and to show up to the battle. Like Malcolm said, you know, we want to be that we can have God on our side. Battles that we need to be fought. You can't fight. We can't fight these battles in a divided house. We have to work on all of that. We have to work on all of those things that are destroying us. Get rid of the compromisers. We got to get rid of the snitches. We got to get rid of the dividers. I say snitch. You know, I'm not talking about somebody do something wrong. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about those people who are destroying the fiber of our community. You know, there's people that they're so much narcissistic that they're rather, if it doesn't, everything has to revolve around them. They have to be the star of the show. Their name has to be on a marquee in order for them to do anything. You know, and if things don't revolve around them, then it's not worth doing. And clearly, but we praise God. We don't praise man. So in us praising the Most High God, and everybody has to focus on the individual that you see, even though a lot of us think they do. Speaks for God, but God. We can only read and reinterpret what the most, not even really read and re-emphasize what the Most High says. But nobody speaks for the Most High. And continue to use the Most High God's name agendas. We got to stop that. You know, we got to start being, we got to start being righteous, man. That's what it comes down to. We got to take an audit of ourselves, look at our faults, and change those. Not only is destroying us and those around us, but destroying the community as a whole. We got to take that out. 619 is it's not addressed for just Israel. We want to address the entire community, but we want to make sure that there's a level of awareness of what's going on, and there's a level of preparedness that we can take as a people. And this is something I want to continue to do every year.
That's right.
State the community state of Black America address.
That's right.
If things change, when Trump becomes president, we're going to have to mobilize. We're going to have to decide what we're going to do in order to feed ourselves, take care of ourselves, make sure that the police don't have back in their backs in order to be in our communities. But even more than what we got to be prepared, not just to talk about what's going on in a talk on spirituality, but it's a talk, not spiritual preparedness is lacking. We believe that we can do what we feel, and then God is going to protect us. It's not going to happen. So we have to be on the spiritual guard against a lot of what's going on. Our children are being bombarded with all types. They're being indoctrinated. That we have to take as far as making sure that we can't destroy it because we live in this country, but we can curb all the garbage that our children are being indoctrinated into.
Chief, what one of the things that I think is pertinent that we really gotta concentrate on is this idea that New York City is the place. It's gonna have to come a time where we might have to make a move out of this city, because economically it's not making any sense for us. We getting priced out of the city. We've getting
Right.
there are a lot of issues that are happening in raising our children because we have to send them to this public school system. We're not even mobilizing enough in order to even get the money out the system to open up our own schools like most communities do. Don't mean to beat a dead horse, but the Jews own the Department of Education, the DOA. You know what I mean? The DOE. They own that. When you look at the special departments of the DOE, is nothing but wigs in there. So we have to mobilize in some way for us to be able to control our own economics, control our own structure, control our security, control how our communities run. Because if you look at Williamsburg, if you look at certain parts of Crown Heights, if you look at certain parts of when you're going down towards Bay Ridge and not Bay Ridge, the area behind there on Ocean Avenue, those people control their communities. And that's what's lacking within the Black community. We don't control our communities. That's why police officers could come in there, come from Long Island and murder us with no problem. They can't get away with that on Kingston Avenue. They can't get away with that on Williamsburg. They know that rabbis is giving little boys herpes, but they wouldn't dare go into that community and stop that practice. You understand what I'm saying? They know that there's child molestation within that community. They wouldn't dare step in there and stop anything. The government has a respect for them. So I don't think that that's far-fetched. I think that we could do it, but it just seems that our people can't get it together as far as coming together. It's like you say, is that narcissistic crisis that we have, that if I'm not spearheading it, then it can't be good, or it's not good, or I'm assigned by the Most High to do certain things, so it has to be spearheaded by me, and that's what keeps us divided. So as a community, not only the Israelite community, but blacks in general, we cannot come together because we don't have that level of you know what? Let's put our philosophies, our differences to the side, and let's just build together. That's why I think that June 19th is so important, because we have our brother Sharif Bey, who's a Moor, and saying peace to all the Moors out there. But he's coming with a whole different level, because our Moor brothers and sisters, they understand the laws of the country. They could educate us on the laws of the country, and then we can't be so proud to say, hey man, you are more, we don't mess with the feathers. Now it's to the point where we gotta mess with each other. We have to really, if you're a Christian, if you are whatever you are, denomination you are, we gotta come together, because times is getting critical, and we have to learn to bring our resources together so that we could in turn advance ourselves and protect ourselves, because it's getting critical. You know what I'm saying? I throw it back to you.
Nah, I concur 100%. And that's why what God has given me for me to know who I am. Thank God for my mother for putting me on the path to knowledge. Thank God for Prince Support for as far as being a father figure in my life. Because I'm rooted in the greatest that God has given to mankind, which is Torah. There's going to be a time in how we'll those around us, but we have to be a positive light. And part of the reason why is, if I'm attacking, you're going to turn off from what I have to say. Attacking join a religion, they try to embody that. Some people try to embody it. They represent that. So to attack the religion is to attack their choice. To attack them, they're going to flee from you, or they're going to try to bring them to your, especially black people. I'm strictly talking about my people at this point. But if you understand that my arms are receive you, your state is, you'll be better, you'll be more keen to listen to what I have to say to you, because I'm not starting off you with hostility. And everybody's the first thing that you hear from me is, "Oh, you stupid," or this. Then I'm less likely to go. Unless I have a slave mentality. People decisions and what defend that. They got people get and their grandparents. Offend their religion is to offend that, to offend their culture, their traditions. I'm learning past few years that is willing to listen, then they're willing to be taught, and when they're willing to be taught, they are willing to enlighten their minds to a whole bunch of different things. But as long as you can have a conversation, you can always. When you can't have a conversation with people, then there's nothing to be learned. So that's why I'm out in the community. I do with different people, because I'm representing your Torah perspective when I come, and if I bring the Torah in a manner that's as Gabba Eliyahu said, he said, if we always teach in Torah as a punitive doctrine, where if you don't do this, or we're gonna stone you, or we're gonna kill you, or we're gonna do this, instead of a doctrine of edification and upliftment, it's a big difference if that helps edify a man. That I can take the worst person on the street, and if I give him God, he can change. He can revolutionize himself. He can evolve himself into something that's positive that not God can work with. We don't do that. As a tool to browbeat people, to take people down, to destroy spirits. Torah for it's really a use of manipulation. The way we do it, and I'm not saying to be passive with it. The Torah was given to the children of Israel so that they can become a nation and so that they can be a light to the rest of the world. So in that same vein, we have to teach Torah. We have to teach Torah in the sense that we make people great again. We can take those dry bones, connect those dry bones, put flesh on those dry bones, and with the word of God can give them back that breath of life, and they be a people once again. That's Torah. That's speaking to the masses of the people about the greatness of God so that they can bend. But you have to do it the right way. You know, it didn't say that they were going to be insulted, chastised. They're going to be uplifted. They're going to be resurrected. You know, and part of the resurrecting is to make people feel good about who they are. This is one of the from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. What you believe doctrine. He was able to take black people who are ex-cons, drug addicts, to people who are in all forms of life, and give them something to make them feel important about themselves, to want to throw all of those things away. But it didn't work. You know, you got hypocrites and everything. A lot of people were able to change their lives around when they heard that the black man is the original man. Black man, cream of the planet Earth, father of the civilization, God of the universe. When you hear stuff like that and you have a doctrine yourself, regardless of whether you agree with it or not, you stand up straight because now you're being infused with that you're not getting from school, from church, or from American society. Not knocking church, but remember at the time, in those times, church was heavily into society and white Jesus and all of that good stuff. You know what I mean? Which destroys us. It destroys our development when we see that God or a figure of God does not look like us. That change is needed. That thing, that togetherness is needed. Say this, you know, it's very important that we have together. It's very important that you have an understanding that, you know, you in charge of everything. You're not going to be the pioneer, the spearhead. You're not going to have every invention and every idea. That's not the way society works. Everybody has something that they contribute to it. And the days of kings, done. The days of kings are gone. We need to get out of that and be able to always crossing lines, doing what to be repairers of the breach. Out to my brother YEHUDAH, to be repairers of the breach. All facets of our community, and we need a lot of healing, but we need to be able to put a lot of things aside. I'll give you an example. Separation, but this is an example of progress. You know, Chief Ben Dan, shout out to Chief Ben Dan. He is probably doing his radio show now, but working on manufacturing calibrate and simple stuff, and we're going to be working on some juices as well. But these are simple things that we can start off, but we have to get support. Be able to take it to a level where, you know, my $2 with my brother, as opposed to outside source, a supermarket, or whatever the case may be, and supporting them. Problem with when in reality it's not one guy getting rich, it's all of us getting rich. We have a mistrust. A lot of that mistrust has been something that has been ingrained in us since we were slavery, because master would reward slaves, which I'm going to talk about June 19th. We reward slaves who snitched on their brothers, uncovered plots of rebellion, who turned in brothers that may have tried to escape slavery. We were rewarded. Some of us were rewarded with our freedom. So we have this thing with one another that, we can't stick together and see each other progress. We have to revise we have to revise our mentalities to be able to work together on any front. Those things that we don't agree on, we may not agree on, but is it strong enough for us to be separated against our enemies? At the same day, he doesn't care. He doesn't care what your differences are. He's going to attack you, he's going to attack you. If he wants to kill you, he's going to kill you. Doesn't mean where you stand. So, to conclude, whether we're going to let these, allow ourselves to be the victims of separators and people who we have to make the change to make sure we uplift ourselves to be better. To let people, and because I noticed in my life, it is too, brother. When there were no instigators amongst us, we have order. And I'm just talking about those of us who know each other. When there's no instigator amongst us, when there's nobody feeding ears and stuff like that, the ability for us to have common vision to work with one another, because there's nobody with a private agenda is in spirits. It's important. It's important to do out those who start strife and things of that nature, to help them, because it's really a sickness that people they anger and hatred and spite and vengeance, and that's a sickness that we have, that we feel comfortable with conflict than we do with peace. Have an understanding really is, peace of mind, peace of self, peace to the pot. We need to have peace. We need to learn to have and a lot of families are going through crisis. They don't have a sense to understand that the family is more important. The togetherness is more important. You don't have to be right to get what you want. You don't have to have your way. Is always the best way, not your way. To make our family stronger, because that's the root of a lot of things. And which society did a lot to divide our families, to put us in a situation where for power in the same household instead of learning how to cooperate with each other, competing for power in the same camp, in the same community, competing for power in the same nation, the Black community. Instead of one another, we compete for our prestige and our popularity and our power. Instead of, we need to learn how to cooperate with one another, because that's the only way we're going to move.
Hallelujah. There you got it from my brother, Chief Naphtali Ben Dan. I'm not going to hold him up too much longer, because we both have to go to work in the morning. So I thank you, my brother, once again for the time. I thank you for the for bringing forth some powerful thoughts. And I just want to say this for the people online. My brother Chief Naphtali Ben Dan, when we were in Shema under Prince Paul Ben Zavulun, also my teacher, he was one of the people that was always in the forefront of creating every banner that you see from Shema, or anything that you see of that nature, from a lot of the things that we did, the newspaper and all of those things were created. The covers for DVDs, whatever it might be that has to do with graphic arts, it was created by this man. And I just wanted to give him his due now that we're here in the midst of the people, and let people understand and know that this man, you know, he played an integral part in a lot of the things that we did. You know, creating the principles that we read, and really deep brother from when we were young. Was always ahead of time reading books. When I hated to read books, he was reading them. So and put me on to quite a few books. When I started to read books, then I read them because he put me on to them. So I just want to give him his due and his respect as far as the things that he's done in the community, and understand that he is a brother that has a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So on June 19th, we're going to be doing some more promo videos, brothers. I know you say you got one coming up. So we hope that everybody will join us. When I re-edit this video, I'm going to put all the links to everything, Eventbrite, how you can support us to come out, you know, buy tickets, whatever it might be. We need your presence there because it's going to be a powerful presentation. This is not even half of what he's going to present. He's going to have his powerful presentation ready to go. And believe me, when the crowd is there, it's a whole different atmosphere. I know it because we come from the same school. So we like to thank everybody who joined us tonight. We like to ask everybody to once again donate to help us, you know, with this whole project as we trying to start some lectures. And instead of doing parties, it's easy for us to do a party, but we've done parties for years. Now we need to edify ourselves in order to progress and know the things that we need to do to move forward as a community. So once again, I'd like to thank my brother Chief Naphtali Ben Dan, and I'd like to thank everybody out there in the listening audience. May the Most High God bless you all. Shalom, and everyone have a good night. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Tell everybody for the opportunity, brother.
All right, shalom, my brother.